Hi, welcome to AI Trust Talks. I'm your host, Emma Johnson, and I'm excited to have you here. Artificial intelligence is changing the way we live, work, and connect, but with great power comes great responsibility. That's why this podcast exists, to deep dive into the critical conversations about AI safety, ethics, and responsible use. Every episode will explore the real-world challenges and opportunities AI brings, from helping business owners and corporate leaders make better decisions, to empowering data scientists to create responsible solutions, to guiding parents on how AI impacts their children's safety. This podcast is for anyone who cares about building a future we can all trust. So whether you're here to learn, debate, or just stay ahead of the curve, I invite you to join me on this journey as we shape the future of AI together. This is AI Trust Talks, where we build trust and technology, one conversation at a time. In today's digital world, personal branding isn't just about creating an image, it's about creating trust, authenticity, and meaningful connections. And as AI continues to reshape the way we communicate, market ourselves, create content, social media usage, and building relationships, staying true to who we are has never been more important. Whether you're growing your career, running a business, or simply looking to present yourself effectively online, understanding how AI influences personal branding is key to navigating this changing landscape. I'm excited to welcome Kelly Lundberg to AI Trust Talks today. She's a true expert in personal branding and a living example of authenticity. Kelly, we've known each other for about a year now, and you've been really helping define my own personal brand. And I'm so excited to welcome you to AI Trust Talks today. It's really key in the world of where we're going with AI to keep that personal branding and that authenticity. So with AI's growing role in content creation and marketing, how would you recommend individuals ensure their personal brand remains really authentic and uniquely human?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I am so proud. This is a great moment to see what were ideas, how do I translate this message, how do I communicate this into a platform now, which is what you're doing. And I think that this is an excellent example of how do you translate the human piece into what you're doing, and especially things that are quite technical. From that perspective, I always say you've got to lean into storytelling. The response that people will come back to is, but I don't have stories to tell, or my stories aren't interesting. And I always think that's a load of rubbish. They just don't know how to potentially structure a story, how to communicate. Maybe they waffle too much. Maybe they don't get to the point. And when it comes to that humanizing piece of the personal brand, we want it to be punchy. We want there to be a lesson in it. And I think the big pieces, kind of when communicating storytelling, is there's always got to be what's in it for the listener. So that would be probably one of the strongest ways that I would say, how do you keep humanizing your brand? Is sure, we can use tools like, your chat, your Claude, or whatever it is to help prompt. And the pieces that have got to come from you are your stories and your personal pieces that no one else has got. And I always like to use, and I think we've talked about that in one of the workshops, where I say there's so many ways to tell a story. And I've worked out the easiest way to tell a story in this context. So if we're looking at online, or maybe in a quick team meeting, or, communicating something that's data that's so hard maybe for people to always resonate with, is the 4C framework. So we have, first of all, what's the context? So to give people that idea, or where are you, bring them on that emotional connection with you. The second C is then, what's the challenge that you're facing, that ultimately maybe the person that's telling the story will have faced a similar challenge. And then from there, how did you confront the challenge? And the final piece is, what's the consequence? And I always say when you kind of fit around that framework, you can get to the point quickly. It's less than 2.5 minutes, and someone feels like they're really getting value. Oh, wow. And you've emotionally taken them a journey with you.
Yeah, I love that. That's fantastic advice. Storytelling is so key in this world of AI. It's really around getting people to understand the concerns that may arise and AI could go wrong. So it's key that we really tell that story of experiences or things that have gone wrong in the past and how we can really start to build trust back into the systems. And I love the 4C framework. It's
It's
certainly
easy to
something
remember.
that it is.
And you think about some of the stories that you've told on LinkedIn and
Yeah.
how much better if we're looking at the stats that they've performed basis something that's quite maybe more data driven
Yeah.
or industry based
Yeah.
versus I think one with Junior.
Yeah.
It did really well. That was one of your earlier posts, and it was just that connection, and people can relate to, having a pet and that personal piece.
Yeah, I definitely think that relatability needs to come through in everything you do. So AI offers tools for automated social media management and content personalization. What strategies would you recommend to people for balancing AI-driven efficiency and maintaining that real genuine connection with the audience?
Yeah, I think there's kind of two parts to that. So I think, first of all, scheduling, I've looked at weeks where I have scheduled and I've looked at weeks where I haven't scheduled. And for whatever reason, either I've been too busy or I've gone, no, I'm going to do it manually, or the team's going to do it, whatever it is. And you definitely see a difference and you see a drop. And I noticed that when I schedule content, so it's thoughtful in the sense of the voice is coming from me, but we just don't always think about at the time, I've got to post, I've got to post, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. So I would say scheduling helps maintain the consistency, which then keeps the visibility in people's eyes. For example, driving here this morning, I saw quite a few engagement pieces come up on LinkedIn, and I was like, ooh, which post did I actually put out? And then I was like, okay. So in an ideal world, if I was doing something different, I would definitely have engaged personally before I put that piece of content out. But life's busy and there's things going on. You can't always commit every day to my routine of 30 minutes a day on LinkedIn or 30 minutes a day on whatever platform it is. So I would say there's got to be that healthy balance to maintain the consistency, because that's the key piece in personal branding, is having the consistency, which results in visibility, but being able to blend that with real-time engagements or having conversations with people and making the time to do that. And I think that also comes down to a little bit of diary management. So making sure that whilst you might not have that every day, that there is a time throughout your week where you sit down and go, nope, I'm going to engage with this person. I want to speak to this person and develop relationships. And again, that's where AI can compete with your own human voice. So I think there's a space for both. There has to be a space for both, because there's no way with the amount of platforms that there is that expectation to be on. And there'll be more coming that we don't even know about, that it's like, this is the next big thing. I mean, how many people jump to Threads when it first came out? And I don't know what the stats are on that now in terms of who still uses it and how it's working in terms of a tool, but there'll be others that come out. So I would say if we can find that healthy balance of both, it's really going to help you stand out in the consistent space. That's the key.
Yeah. And that's what I've learned over the journey that we've been working together as well, is around that consistency and having to just block time in the calendar to get that done. I'm already planning some LinkedIn posts for June this year when I know things are going to start happening, but that doesn't mean I've got stuff sorted between now and June, but I'll certainly start working on that. But no, it is good advice, and definitely consistency is what keeps it up there.
But then you get into a bit of a flow. And I think that's definitely something that you've said in the past, that you're like, I'm actually really enjoying this. That in the beginning, it's hard going because you're like, what's my voice? What are my content pillars? And I think when you understand that, that's not necessarily AI doing. You're like, what does Emma want to talk about? What does Kelly want to talk about? Because you can spot AI. I think that is the thing, or you can spot when it's not your voice. I think, there's keywords, there's dashes, like there's so many things that you're like, they've gone in and ChatGPT'd that. But I do think that you find a way where you're like, actually, this, I enjoy communicating that. And that's the space that you want to go into, not from, I have to do this. This is my opportunity to share value, inspire other people. And when you take it away from, it's all about me, because it's never about you. That's the mistake that people make with personal branding, is they think, but it's about me, and it's about me boasting about my achievements, and it's about me going, how amazing I am. And I'm like, no, it's far from that. there is a space to be able to talk about a little bit of that, but it's about how much value you can deliver. And that again comes from the personal piece. And the one thing that I've loved our messages back and forward is the tracking.
Yeah.
Because people don't do that.
Yeah.
And I think, coming from tools nowadays, what can we use? There's so many tracking tools out there, but what posts, what content did really well? What analytics can you be looking at? So for LinkedIn, for example, sure, impressions is great, but impressions in posts that go viral don't always result in people looking at who you are. So a great metric can be people looking at your profile visits rather than just, oh, I've gone viral in this post, how amazing it is. But has that resulted in, if you own your own business, getting clients or opportunities or speaking or whatever it is? But I think the big piece with the visibility is also people assume you're doing very well. So if they see you a lot, they're like, you're doing amazing.
Like I've had this actually. That's a
Really?
yeah.
Yeah. And because they just see, you're doing so well. And it's great. There's also the real time and real side to it, but you're putting in the effort for that. And that's where the opportunities come from. Can you come and speak on this panel?
Yeah.
More visibility. Can you do this collaboration with me? More visibility. And that's the goal. If you want to impact more people and you want to change, the visibility piece is going to be key.
Yeah, that's really good. I've definitely had like comments and feedback from people that have sort of noticed visibility around. But you're right, I want to make that impactful change when it comes to building trustworthy AI systems. So it's key that we get that visibility.
Yeah, and you know what I think is quite interesting about personal branding and LinkedIn as a tool, because we've mentioned it a couple of times there. And one of the things that I'm seeing is that when clients come to me, they think, first of all, oh, LinkedIn, other people will think I'm looking for a job. No, I want to develop my relationship, or I want to make sure that my awareness within my role is more visible. But what people don't always realize is all your employees, your team, your colleagues, they're all on the same social media platform. So the visibility piece comes online even when you're in the corporate world within the organization, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's not always just, what am I doing visibly day to day? Am I showing up in the office? It's like, no. They're all looking online as well. They might not all comment, they might not all like, but they're watching.
Yeah, and there's a good network, I think, of people out there. I mean, there's only a small group of us that are really pushing the narrative around building trustworthy AI systems. But it is, I don't know if just because they're on my network or because there's only a couple of us, but I see all that visibility and it really excites me that we are sharing that message to people that might not understand the impact of AI if we do the wrong thing. And that's really, I'm here to support humanity and drive that messaging forward and really seeing how we can help build the next generation into a better future.
And doing this, the podcast, speaking about it on social media, it's not about you. It's just you using your skill set to introduce more people. I even think about the conversations we've had and I've never thought about that before. However, how does that relate into this, or how does that affect that? Oh, okay. It's just one conversation with one person and it impacts.
Yeah.
So how can we multiply that? So you're doing a great job.
Thank you. AI becomes more prevalent in professional settings. What new opportunities and challenges do you foresee for personal branding, especially for entrepreneurs or CEOs aiming to stand out in their industries?
Well, I think the standout piece is then, what are you doing that's different? Because I think everyone's kind of got that, okay, I need to be posting regularly, or goes back to one, ultimately what I say personal branding is about. And that is, how do you make people feel when they come into contact with something that you say or do? And that perspective could be online, it could be in person, and you can try and be a great person one day, but if you don't do that consistently, then you start to get the reputation. And it's the reputation is what matters. So I think always thinking about being aware and reflecting as to, how do I make people feel? What do people think about me? I mean, great if you're, I don't care. But I think the majority of people do care to a point.
Yeah.
And I think understanding, is there ways that I can improve? Maybe what am I not great at? We're all on this learning journey together. We don't know everything right now. So what can I be improving to make a better impact? And again, that's something the AI can't do. You need that real-time feedback from your boss, from your peers, from your colleagues. So I think that is one thing that really needs to be considered. Auditing your personal brand, I would be wanting people to be looking at doing a big annual audit. So looking at every aspect, voice, because we change so much. Our bio, what achievements extra can we put into it? But then looking at little mini quarterly audits of going, oh, do you know what? Maybe I'll make that post featured on LinkedIn because it did really well. Or so just that awareness, I think, is going to be something that actually stands out. And I think above and beyond, and I know it's something that you've done, is that voice piece is making your personal brand separate from the organization. Not that it's a conflict, but you are the ambassador. You're one of the ambassadors in the team. So I think looking at ways that you have a voice, everyone's got a voice, having your own personal branded website, doing your own podcast. If you're at CEO position, you want to be memorable. You want to be doing things that your other team members aren't. So maybe everyone's on LinkedIn. What else can you be doing that is not on that? I've got clients that have started, reverse mentoring. I've got other clients that have done book meetups within the organization, just getting all departments together. These are little things where you can bring your knowledge or your personality to the forefront of, hey, this is who I am and how can I help you?
Yeah, that's such good advice. I'm of the opinion that people don't want to be bad humans, but it's just a matter of kind of living and breathing that, finding out what value you really want to bring to the world, and just how you bring that authenticity back to what you're doing and the messaging that you're giving as well. And this is something that we've learned from you quite well.
But I think that authenticity piece is really interesting. There's two types of clients I work with. Clients that are going into their business, they may be transitioning and they're starting or launching their own business, and they really need to work on their personal brand, because how else is anyone going to buy their product or service? So that's one side. And I really see the authenticity piece and confidence grow within that type of clientele. Where I find the authenticity piece harder, and it's something that I'm working on, to how to try and give tools for employees within organizations. Because there is this level of, but I don't want to come across like this to my colleagues, or my colleagues don't ever see the real me. And you're like, but you spent a third of your life at work. How could you be more you in a professional sense? I'm not saying lock up in your sweatpants like you would on a Saturday night sitting and eating pizza and home type thing. There was this great analogy by a chap called Chris Stowe who talked about being unapologetically you. I think he was trying to understand, or I think I've taken the piece of unapologetically you because it's part of my messaging. But what does that mean? How do you show up as you? And the way that he described it is, when are you the youest you? Or when am I the meest me? And I think there's this, well, my husband sees the meest me on that weekend, the conversations, the ad hoc first thing in the morning, like that's the meest me. And then the world sees the meest me of the version of Kelly that I put out there. And what you want, I believe, is the two to be meeting somewhere. Because what you don't want is people to go, oh, could do so much fun outside work. You know what I mean? And then you're like, well, maybe I need to bring a bit more fun into work. And how do I bring my personality in? Versus this other people that will say, oh, wow, you come across like this on social media, but actually you're really quite nice. Because there's
Yeah.
two ways that it goes. So we want to try and be that. I would say there's that description. Then when people go, they go, oh, you just come across like you do on social media, or, yeah, you're kind of the same. Like, I think that's a great compliment,
Mm.
because that's you showing up as you. And listen, everyone else is taken.
Yeah.
So you gotta focus on you. And I find the more meest me I'm being, the more opportunities are happening.
Mm.
And maybe it's an age thing. I don't know, a happiness space. Maybe it's all of the above. Going, I'm in a career that I absolutely love, and it gives so much value. But I would say there isn't much difference, if any, between the meest me or the youest you.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it is really important to kind of find that connection to bring them both together as well. And that's when it really truly comes out in the way you work as well. So, in what ways can AI assist individuals in identifying and reaching their target audience? I know we've talked a lot about this and engagement on LinkedIn, etc. And how can one leverage these insights to enhance their personal brand strategy?
Well, I think people don't spend enough time in that kind of what posts working well or that reflective space. And it's not until people actively work on their personal brand when I maybe get them to send out an audit, they're like, oh, that's what people think about me. So I don't think there's enough of that. So I think leveraging more on the tools that give you the opportunity to get that perspective and feedback from your peer group or from friends and family. But I would also say looking at tools and analytics to be able to help with what post is working well, what piece of content's working well. One of the things that I've been finding really useful to use is using AI to help me a little bit better with hooks. I've got the idea, I know what I want to say, but often I can't get the 3-second hook exactly right. So then I'll use that as going, this is the message, this is what I want to put out. Can you give me some ideas of what would be a great hook? And I'd be like, okay, that sounds like me. That is me. It's just worded way better. Leveraging off ways like that can really help you because hey, it's a competitive space if we're talking about using the online world for visibility. And I think when it comes to outside of that, you investing in yourself is going to be the best investment you make. So I would highly recommend to anyone that if your public speaking skills are not something that you're confident in, you need to practice that. And that's where I see the leverage piece. What can you practice? So use AI to transcribe one of your latest keynotes or a panel and then get that to identify, for example, how many as did you say?
How many filler words were there in there?
Exactly. And I think filler words is quite an interesting one because filler words are something that people always think are ands, buts, you know what I mean? But actually, people have their own filler word or phrase. And you'll start to see that through if you go, can you point out the things that I say all the time? I remember in January, I hosted a big event. Actually, you came along to it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you'll notice this, but then at the end of the event, I got my team member, Irish, to say to me, can you give me any feedback? And she said, you won't notice this, but you actually said this phrase a lot. And I was, did I really? And I didn't know. And I'm very open for that feedback because you're in the moment and
Yeah.
then something sits. But then for the audience, it can be really annoying. So I think also looking at one, the reflection piece, what strengths can I get better at? Ultimately, public speaking comes in storytelling, communication. If you can't communicate to your team, if you can't communicate to the results, anything, that comes down to speaking. And I would say that's something that you need to invest in yourself, but use things like AI to help you fill in the gaps of maybe where you need some help.
Yeah, communication is so key in today's world and effective communication as well. Finding the right way to share your message and it aligns to storytelling as well and kind of bringing those together to get some good engagement and get the right messages out to the audience you're trying to target. So, considering that the rapid evolution of AI technologies, what advice would you give professionals to future proof their personal brand in this dynamic landscape?
So I think we've kind of touched on the key ones. So your consistency piece. So a lot of people get very excited about it and then they just disappear. And then you don't hear anything, or they got the job, and then they're like, "Oh, okay, I've got the promotion." I often found that in the styling world. So for 15 years, I was a celebrity stylist, and people would, I'd go through their wardrobes, and then they'd go, I'd say, "Oh, what about this outfit?" And I go, "Oh, I'd just wear that for an interview." And it always used to make me smile because I'd go, "Well, hang on a minute." you wear that to create the impression. And when you're in the role, you're like, oh, who cares? And I kind of think personal branding's the same, that's where the consistency piece comes in. Visual image, communication tools. So being able to build on that, I think is huge. And to be honest, knowing that you've got a personal brand, because loads of people go, well, I don't have one, or, I'm only in this position and I don't want to be the CEO, so I don't have a personal brand, or I'm really quiet, or I'm shy. Whereas there's just ways around you communicating your message that might not be you standing up and delivering a meeting in front of, 100 people at a town hall, for example. That's just maybe not what you love doing, but there could be another way that you're great at the newsletter or the blog piece or the whatever it is. So I think that piece is not disappearing into the night and not to be seen again until you need something. The consistency. I always say your personal brand is like a long-term savings account. And the compound interest is the consistency that you put in. And when people look back, they go, oh, you're doing amazing. Or, I see you everywhere. Or, oh, it's so good that you've landed this and this. And they're like, yeah, but I've been doing this for the past 5 years. Or, I've been working on this for the last, X amount. And people don't always kind of see that part as well. And I would always say the biggest contributor to a successful brand, but also someone successful in business, is continuous learning.
Yeah.
And whether it's reading books, YouTube, 10 minutes on the way home from the gym, sometimes it doesn't need to be, I've read 50 books this year. It can just be, I've picked up one thing. Wow, that really stuck with me. And I can see how I could bring that into my meeting next week and make it more me.
Yeah.
So I would say the continuous learning is huge. And I've spent a huge amount of my money in personal development. And I think that people have got different opinions about that. And I think even in the corporate world, even if they're not paying for it, if you pay for it, that investment is going to be huge. I think it was Alex Hermosi that talked about it, the S&P 500. And he said, instead of the investing in the S&P 500, he said, it was something along the lines of, and I'm paraphrasing here, but it was like, what's the best return you'll get on average in the S&P 500? I mean, forget stocks and all that now. Let's just say, okay, what could you pick? 10, 12%, 15? Even if you went with 15%,
Yeah.
okay, could an investment in a coach, or when you've worked with me, or for the S&P 500, could I get you 10 or 15% investment back on that?
Yes.
Way more,
Yeah.
way more. And that's when I think that is where the future of you being able to stand out is that constant learning from others. We don't live long enough to make all the mistakes ourselves. Learn from other people so you can get there faster, so you can get your message out, impact and inspire more people.
I love it. And it is true. You do need to invest a lot in yourself. And it's not just the technical learnings, like, what's the next kind of technology out there that we all need to learn about or study about. That's one side of it. But those soft skills that we need to learn is just so imperative to driving things forward and getting that messages out and finding tags or hooks into your audience as well.
And you've been so good about bringing that, what you've learned personally, into work. And bringing that to the team. This is what I've learned. I actually think they could really benefit from this and from this. And that came from your initial investment into going, do you know what? No, I want my team to be able to learn this. And that's when you start people on a bigger change mission.
Yeah, I love it. So, what would your last piece of advice be to those when we talk about AI, when we talk about building trust in AI and then making sure we bring in that human element and authenticity? What would be your last piece of advice?
I would want you to look at AI is more a collaborator rather than a crutch. So I would want people to consider, how could this help me along the way? How can this help me get my hook? How can this check my spelling?
Or grammar?
Exactly. It's one thing now. My family were always messaging me after I put a post out, and they'd be, you've got 3 typos in that thing, in that post you go. And I'm like, and now I look back on that and I go, well, that was authentic.
Yeah.
Versus now I don't have typos because I do put everything in to say, check the spelling, British spelling. So I would say look at AI as that collaboration, but don't lose your voice because there's only one of you ever created with your experiences, with your outlook on life, with your technical abilities and personality. So don't let AI dilute that. Let that enhance it and help with the consistency of it all.
I love it. Thank you so much, Kelly. I've loved having you on the show today and really look forward to any future sessions we have.
Brilliant. Congratulations. This is so good.
Thank you. That's it for today's episode of AI Trust Talks. I hope this conversation has sparked new insights and empowered you to think critically about the role of AI in our lives. Together, we have the power to shape the future where technology serves humanity responsibly and ethically. If you have found this episode valuable, don't forget to subscribe, share, and join the conversation. Your voice matters in building a trusted AI future. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and let's keep building trust in technology, one conversation at a time.